representante de el Tafe de Western Australia, que queda en la ciudad de Perth, en Australia. Así que bienvenidos, gracias por conectarse. Vamos a compartir también esto en Facebook para que nos puedan acompañar desde diferentes plataformas. Así que bienvenidos. Estamos con Michael hoy, que nos va a contar un poquito pues, acerca de este maravilloso institución pública del gobierno, donde van a poder estudiar un montón de profesiones y maestrías. ¿Listo? Así que bienvenido. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much, Natalia. And I suppose in Espanol, gracias por tu paciencia. I don't know if that applies to everybody or just one person. My Spanish is not very good. Gracias por tu paciencia.
It's okay.
So,
yeah, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, and thank you very much. So I think I should be able to share a screen if I'm not mistaken. Let's have a look here. Okay.
Yeah. Just a second, maybe.
Okay, so this should be showing.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So Natalia, would you like me to go through slide by slide and give you a chance to translate each one, or would you prefer to just maybe do 2 or 3 slides and then translate?
I think we can do it just the whole presentation, and at the end we can do questions and answers, maybe. Because
perfect. Sounds good to me. Okay.
We need to practice our English, so it's okay.
Well, in that case, I will speak as slowly as I can. Yeah. I sometimes have a habit of talking too much, so I will try not to do that on this occasion.
Perfect.
So, once again, my name is Michael. I'm from Tafe International, Western Australia. So Tafe International, Western Australia is obviously based in the state of Western Australia, and I am based in Perth, which is the capital city of Western Australia. I'll tell you a little bit more about Tafe and Perth and Western Australia as we go through the slides. But really the most important thing I want to focus on, and I want everybody listening to understand, is that this is primarily about skills, about employability, about value for money, and potentially about pathways to university if you're looking for that sort of thing. But a lot of students from Latin America already have university qualifications. Now, a little bit more about what Tafe is. I'm going to turn my laser pen on here so you can see the red dot. So what is Tafe? Tafe stands for Technical and Further Education. This is a vocational skills-based institution. We are part of the West Australian government. So here in Australia, we have a federal government and we have a state government. Western Australia is the state of Western Australia. We are part of the government of Western Australia. So when you hear the word Tafe, this applies to government vocational systems all around Australia, but Tafe WA is Tafe Western Australia. So that is our Western Australian state government owned system. I am from an office called TIWA. Now, TIWA stands for Tafe International Western Australia. We are the international office for Tafe Western Australia. I mentioned pathways to university. Those pathways to university might not be of interest to you, but the most important thing really is that those pathways to university come out of a very wide selection of courses. We have over 100 different courses available for students. I'll show you some of that in just a moment. I think I can see some of you asking some questions over chat. We'll get to those in just a moment. So a lot of different courses available across many, many different campuses, all of these campuses have very good facilities. This is one of the most important points, is the quality of the facilities that you get from a government institution in Australia. The quality is very high, the teaching quality is very high, and really what that presents is great value for money, okay? You're learning practical skills. Those practical skills are being delivered by industry professionals. All of the qualifications we deliver are what we call Australian National Training Packages. Most important outcomes for you are employment, relevance, and earning. A little bit more about Tafe. We talk a lot about colleges and campuses. I'll explain the difference between colleges and campuses in just a moment. But our colleges and campuses exist across a very wide regional and metropolitan presence in Western Australia. And I'll show you some more about that in a moment as well. Location-wise, we have some fantastic locations, not just in the city centre of Perth, but further out in some of the regional areas of Western Australia. The courses we deliver are very straightforward: certificate, diploma, advanced diploma programs. It just depends on what you want to study, but we have a lot of different entry points for a lot of different students and a lot of different entry points based on the program that you are studying. Some very interesting things about Tafe in Western Australia that not many people realise. 3 very important things. Number 1, we are actually the largest education provider in Western Australia. So we have between 50,000 and 100,000 students enrolled at any given time in Western Australia. That's because the majority of those are Australian domestic students. Which brings us to point number 2, which is diversity. The large cohort of domestic students, local students that we have here, added to over 100 different nationalities of international students, that makes for a lot of diversity in the student cohort, and also diversity in the staff or the lecturing body. That makes for a very enriching learning experience. Okay, so that's a very important point for students. It's very important to be in a very diverse learning environment, because it just adds to the quality of your education. And final point on this slide is our history. We have been around for over 100 years. So people talk about universities and being very old, over 100 years, over 200 years. A lot of skills-based colleges or vocational colleges in Australia are very young. We are actually over 100 years old. So we have been teaching skills to the workforce in Western Australia for a long time, and we are very good at it. So I mentioned we are based in Western Australia and Perth. I'll just have a quick look at some, let's have a look here, chat. I can't seem to bring the chat box up. I'll try and have a look at that again in a minute. I can see a couple of questions coming through. So I'll tell you a little bit more about Western Australia and Perth. Western Australia is the largest state in Australia. Perth is the capital city. This is a picture of Perth in the background. Perth is actually officially the cheapest city or the most affordable city in Australia. When we talk about cities in Australia, we talk about 5 cities: Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide. Perth is officially the most affordable city in Australia. We are quite a long way from Sydney and Melbourne. I'm not sure if you understand the size of Australia, and I'll show you what it looks like in a moment. But by plane, we are actually around about 4.5, 5 hours flight from Melbourne and Sydney. So we are a long way on the other side of the country, almost a separate country completely. So a very affordable city, a very fantastic lifestyle. It's a livable lifestyle, very comfortable. I'll show you a few pictures in a moment. Fantastic weather, fantastic scenery, fantastic shopping, culture, entertainment opportunities. It's a very, very interesting, relaxing, fun, dynamic place to be. For me, as a previous international student in Western Australia, I came from Africa originally. The most important thing for me is about balance. Balance is the most important thing for an international student. You want to be in a city that is not too big, not too small, not too quiet, not too busy. That's the most important thing. And I talk about flights and time zones, perhaps not so much for Latin America, but in terms of Southeast Asia, like Bali, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, we are very, very close to all of those countries and basically in the same time zone as all of those countries. So a lot of accessibility for that part of the world. And just like the rest of Australia, here in Western Australia and Perth, we do have a world-class education system, as you can imagine. So a few pictures for you. This you might look at and you think to yourself, well, this looks like it's in the countryside somewhere out in the bush. This is actually only about 1 kilometre from the city centre of Perth. This is a very famous historical boathouse sitting on the Swan River. And the Swan River comes from the hills of Perth down into the Indian Ocean, and it goes past the city centre. So just 1 kilometre up the river from Blue Boathouse is the city centre of Perth. I seem to have lost my photo. There it is. So there is the city centre of Perth. You can see it's a really substantial, prominent CBD. And that's just up the river from that Blue Boathouse. here you can see a lot of development going on here. We have hotels and entertainment precincts. We're basically building a waterfront entertainment and cultural precinct here. This is Cottesloe Beach. Now, Cottesloe Beach is about 25 minutes by train from the city centre of Perth. This is Perth's equivalent of Bondi Beach, if you like, but in my opinion, it's much nicer than Bondi Beach. It's quieter, it's more calm, it's easier to swim there, there are fewer people, and just behind these trees is a fantastic street full of cafes and restaurants and bars. Really great place to spend the weekend. My photos don't seem to be behaving themselves very well today. That's another picture of the city centre of Perth. And just outside the city centre of Perth is the entertainment precinct of Northbridge. Northbridge is quite a historical cultural precinct. We have a lot of festivals and activities here, bars and nightclubs and restaurants. And we have what's called the Perth Cultural Centre in Northbridge. This is the State Library, the State Gallery, the State Museum. And in fact, our Tafe campus in Northbridge is officially considered part of the Perth Cultural Centre. So that's very exciting for us. Our campus in the city centre is very popular, and it's only about 300 metres away from where that photograph is taken. Here is Western Australia, Australia. Here is Australia for you. Hopefully your geography is quite strong and you all recognise what Australia looks like. So here you can see, if you look over to the west, look how big Western Australia is. It's huge. The city of Perth is here. So to give you some context, Melbourne is down here, Sydney is over here, Brisbane is over here, and Adelaide is over here. So Perth is down here in the southwest corner. Let's have a little closer look at Western Australia. I mentioned earlier colleges and campuses. So colleges and campuses, we have 4 colleges available for international students. We have 2 regional ones, Central Regional and South Regional, and we have 2 metropolitan colleges. These are the 4 colleges, but each of these colleges has campuses, multiple campuses available for international students. So Geraldton, for example, is part of Central Regional Tafe. Bunbury, Margaret River, Albany, they are part of South Regional Tafe. North Metropolitan and South Metropolitan Tafe, Western Australia, are both in the city of Perth. And to be honest with you, this is where about 90% of our international students choose to go. Perth itself is also designated as a regional city in Australia. So you don't have to be regional in Western Australia. You can actually come to Perth and it still counts as regional. So here, if we look more closely at Perth, I mentioned the Swan River earlier. You can see here the city centre of Perth is around about here. We have 2 campuses in the city centre of Perth. One is East Perth, one is Perth. So if I just go back one, North Metropolitan Tafe is red, South Metropolitan Tafe is purple. So all of these red campuses here, these are part of North Metropolitan Tafe College. All of these purple ones here are part of South Metropolitan Tafe College. Location-wise, fantastic locations. Here you see our Joondalup campus. This is right next door to Edith Cowan University. This is what we call an education precinct. Here's another education precinct. We have Curtin University, and just north of Curtin University is the South Metropolitan Tafe Bentley campus. And again, here is an education and training precinct. This is Murdoch University. This is the South Metropolitan Tafe Murdoch campus. And this here is one of the largest hospitals in the Southern Hemisphere. This is the Fiona Stanley Hospital. Here you can see a train line with Murdoch train station just over here. Same with Joondalup, this train station just next door. So excellent locations and really great facilities. I mean, if you look back here, you can see this campus here is pretty much the same size as this university campus. So when you are looking at a vocational provider, just understand the difference between some smaller private colleges and more substantial, larger, prominent training facilities like a government TAFE in Western Australia. This is what some of our campuses look like. This here is our city campus, certainly one of the most popular campuses with international students. This is our very new building on the Murdoch campus, and this is our beautiful Joondalup campus. So really excellent facilities. quick look at our courses. Here you can see all of the different umbrella areas. These are sort of umbrella areas under which are lots of different individual courses. So just have a quick look at those, and I'll go through them in not too much detail, but just a quick look. So as I said, umbrella areas. So if we look at accounting and business, you can see here, pretty much generic leadership, management, accounting, business, and so on. So all the other umbrella areas have a combination of courses that I would say are pretty standard across Australia in terms of vocational courses, but also a combination of those, but also some very unique courses. So things like aquaculture. Aquaculture, any country that has a coastline has to be taking aquaculture or fish farming very seriously these days. This is about the sustainable production of fish for human consumption rather than continuously catching it from the wild in the oceans where fish populations are declining. Aquaculture is about the sustainable farming of fish for human consumption. So again, engineering, lots of generic things like engineering, technical, civil construction or civil and structural, but also some unique areas like heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, process plant technology in the oil and gas industry, surveying, automotive technology. I would say that for students coming from Latin America, automotive engineering, oil and gas, these sorts of areas seem to be very, very popular. We also have aviation. A quick look at some of our other courses. We have a fantastic creative industries suite of courses. So here we have film and television, we have graphic design, we have fashion, all sorts of fantastic areas. IT, we have software development, website development. We are hoping to add cybersecurity to this area in the not too distant future, and some fantastic community services programs as well. Hospitality, very popular across a lot of different countries, and also conservation and land management. This also seems to be quite popular with students from Latin America. I have a fantastic story of a guy called Felix, who came from Brazil. He was a university graduate from Brazil, but he came and did a diploma in conservation and land management, and he's now working for one of the city councils just south of the city center, basically designing little suburban parks. That's his job. And he says that that is basically his dream job. It's a fantastic occupation. So he moves around the little city council that he lives in and basically designs and landscapes city council parks. So a really wonderful career, considering how important Australia considers suburban design and sustainability to be. So lots of opportunities there. Now, where do our students come from? Over the last year, this is a look at our top 10 student population. This is another really important point about coming to Western Australia. I mentioned diversity earlier on. In the eastern states, a lot of institutions tend to be dominated by one or two or three nationalities. So those are typically students from China, from India, possibly from Vietnam as well. Here we don't have that kind of dominance. In fact, our number one student population, Malaysia, only makes up 9% of our student population. So the top 10 is very, very evenly spread out. So it makes for a very diverse learning environment. China has only recently just crept into our top 10 students, but the majority come from a very diverse background. We have a lot of students from Europe, Latin America as well, Southeast Asia, and also from Africa, Mauritius, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Zambia, South Africa, lots of different populations. University pathways I mentioned. These might not be terribly popular for students in Latin America, so I will just touch on these very quickly. But basically, all I will say is that these are our three university partners, and they are very, very good universities. So we do have opportunities for students to come through Tafe and then move on to university with what we call advanced standing or credit, usually up to 1 year of credit. The universities do have different credit calculations for 1 year of study. So just important to understand what credit you're getting from what university. So if that is of interest to you, make sure you're getting the best possible deal, of course. Now we can do that as a package, which means you come to Tafe, go to the university, all on one student visa. We have a university pathway finder on our website, which you don't really need to look at just yet, but it's a useful tool if you find it. You basically can search by university and by study area, and that will tell you what courses are available and what degrees you can pathway to. And once you use that tool, it produces your results that look like this. So here you can see, for example, when I use that tool, I can search by hospitality, and it'll tell me what degrees I have and which university I can go to. And also, most importantly, how much credit you will get. That's just a small example, but lots of different opportunities there as well. So going back to one of my earlier points, value for money. It's not just about quality of facilities. It's not just about quality of teaching staff. It is also about the learning experience. So we're talking about small classes. We are talking about workplace simulations. We are talking about some work placements. So here at Tafe, Western Australia, it's very much about practical hands-on learning. So if you are not in a workplace simulation on campus, then you are going to be in a work placement off campus with one of our industry partners. So we take it very seriously. We make sure that students, whatever they are studying, are getting real life applicable experience. It's very important for employability purposes afterwards. Our Minister for Vocational Education actually made a very interesting point the other day. She said that university in Australia is for learning purposes, and vocational education in Australia is for earning purposes. This is a very powerful thought. University is very important. Primarily, it's for learning a skill. Learning a theory, or learning a particular discipline from a theory perspective. Vocational education is about learning a skill for employability and earning purposes. So a little bit more of a look now at our facilities. Here you can see one of our commercial kitchens, and here you can see one of our nursing wards. This is on our Joondalup campus. This is one of our early childhood education facilities. It's an interesting time, of course, at the moment in the world with COVID-19. It's amazing to think that about 2 years ago, I was doing a campus tour looking at our nursing facilities. I was in this particular facility right here. One of the lecturers said to me, you know, Michael, if we have a global pandemic or a state of emergency in Western Australia, nursing facilities at Tafe, Western Australia are so advanced that they can be taken over by the government and used as a functioning hospital to help with patients and treating people in emergencies. So our nursing facilities are designed to be adapted in an emergency for hospitalization purposes. Now, that was 2 years ago, and here we are in 2020 in the reality of COVID-19. So if it gets that bad in Western Australia, then it's good to know that Tafe can step up and be considered a functioning hospital. But in Western Australia, we haven't got to that situation yet. The situation is actually very, very strong in Western Australia. In Melbourne, not so great at the moment. We've seen a bit of a spike in the last few days. Sydney as well is a little bit in the balance, but here in Western Australia, so far, things are going quite well. So here is another picture of some more facilities. Here we've got laboratory technology, we've got oil and gas. This is actually on one of our campuses, just south of the city centre. We have our own functioning oil and gas facility. So again, back to that point about value for money. We have a lot of support for students, particularly at the moment for our current students, whether they are facing unemployment or they are struggling to get money from home. We are providing a lot of support for students, case-by-case basis on a financial level, but broadly for all students, we have support in terms of stress, health, mental well-being, helping students find work, giving them career guidance, helping them with additional skills around studying, around English, academic support, counseling, and so on and so forth. We have international coordinators dedicated on each campus, each college, to help with international students. So here's a few more pictures. This is beauty therapy, and this is horticulture, essentially part of that conservation science land management course offering that we have. I mentioned aquaculture. This is on our Geraldton campus. Geraldton is a wonderful, wonderful town just north of Perth, beautiful coastal fishing town. And vet nursing. This is another interesting area for students. Vet nursing is basically nursing, but for animals rather than humans. How much, I hear you ask? What do we charge? Our fees range from around about $12,000, $13,000 up to around $17,500, $18,000. So really quite affordable. We don't have any scholarships available at the moment. We may, I can't promise anything, but we are looking potentially at February 2021 at hopefully offering some small scholarships to try and encourage students to join us at Tafe Western Australia. This is not confirmed yet, but of course, in due course, we will confirm that if we manage to put that in place. But you know, really, this ultimately comes down to whether or not students are going to be able to travel. And we hope that that's going to happen sooner rather than later. But in the absence of scholarships, the most important thing to remember is not just value for money, but the fact that our fees are already quite low. We are looking at $12,000, $13,000 up to around $18,000. That is around about half or just under half of what a university degree costs on a yearly basis. These are our annual tuition fees. So you're looking at about half the price of university. We do have additional fees that are called resource fees or material fees. They can range from $0 up to around $3,000. So it's important to consider that as well. All of this can be written out on a letter of offer that you will get from us when you make an application. Now, the Australian government recommends $18,000 a year for living expenses. This is an amount that is a recommendation from the Australian government. But actually, I think in Western Australia, I mentioned Perth being the most affordable city in Australia. I think it's possible to get away with a little bit less in Western Australia because it's an affordable city. But also, there are more part-time opportunities at the moment than some of the other cities. Things are getting back to normal slowly in Western Australia. We hope that continues. The salary you can earn here as a part-time worker is quite strong. $20, $21 an hour is the minimum wage. So depending on how you live, what kind of lifestyle you have, what kind of work you are doing, that $18,000 a year living expense can probably be considered to be a bit lower, I think. Overseas student health cover, of course, is also $600. That's per year. Accommodation-wise, when you think about this living expense on a yearly basis, that estimate does include accommodation. But looking more closely at accommodation, you can expect to spend anywhere from $120, $130, $150 a week up to around $300, $350, $400 a week. It depends entirely on how you want to live. If you want to go into a house share, that's up to you. If you want to go into one of our accommodation partners like Campus Perth or the Student Housing Company, or if you want to work with our university partners where our TAFE students can access on-campus accommodation with Murdoch and Edith Cowan University, you have a lot of options available. $170 a week, $150, $200, $300 a week, it just depends. Some students choose to go into homestay. This is approximately $250 to $300 a week. And the reason why that's more expensive is that's because it includes everything, all your bills, all your food, internet, all of that sort of stuff. So lots of different options and a wide range of affordability. It's just a question of how you want to live. To be honest, Latin American students in Western Australia, they tend to have very strong community forums and social networks in Western Australia. And I think a lot of students make accommodation arrangements by getting onto those social media forums and making friends and working out, what accommodation options there are available in terms of house shares and things like that. So that's great. The only word of warning I would issue on that, or at least a word of caution, is that research shows unequivocally that international students arriving in Australia with a particular level of English very, very often see their English level drop after arriving in Australia. And that's because a lot of international students choose to find accommodation and choose social environments that are with their own nationality. And as a result, they speak Portuguese, they speak Spanish, and unfortunately, those English levels drop a little bit. That's fine. If you want to live with people from your own country, that's great. Do it. It makes it a lot easier to adjust to life in Western Australia. But make that additional effort to get out and socialize with people from Southeast Asia, with Australians, with Europeans, with Africans. It's the best way to keep your English levels up and also your social life strong. Very, very important for an international student. Do please have a look at our social media channels. We have a fantastic Facebook page, and we also have a great YouTube channel as well. Now, I have a slide here that is our COVID-19 update. My apologies, I haven't actually updated this. This is about a month old. My profuse apologies. But the good news I can tell you is that as of yesterday, it's pretty much the same situation here in Western Australia. We are only seeing very small numbers of cases on a daily basis. I think we had 2 new cases yesterday only, and these are almost entirely, in fact, they are entirely people returning, Australians returning from overseas at the moment. So everybody returning from overseas is going into quarantine. We have 0 community transmission in Western Australia at the moment, which is good. The only new cases are people coming from overseas. So my apologies that I haven't put a new update in there, but things are going reasonably well here in Western Australia. The risk in Western Australia is very low. We are very lucky in terms of geographic location, in terms of being able to close our border with the eastern states and really protect the city of Perth and then all the smaller cities in Western Australia. So the risk is still quite low. Restrictions have been lifted in Western Australia. You are allowed to move around the state of Western Australia, what we call interstate, but intrastate travel is still very, very much restricted. But work in Western Australia, schools, shops, hospitality, they are all already open. Everything's more or less back to normal in Western Australia. We just hope the rest of the country improves and things stabilize. But so far, so good. Western Australia is definitely much better off than the Eastern states. You don't need to worry too much about this. This is for current students currently in Perth, joining us in semester 2, which starts in a couple of weeks' time. We don't have any opportunity for offshore students at the moment to come for semester 2. The next intake is semester 1, February. So that's basically the next opportunity for applications, and we will issue offers for February. But that all depends, as I said, on international travel resuming. When that is, I don't know. We do have COVID-19 updates on our website. I also have a Facebook page. Please feel free to search for me as Michael Ingram Tafe WA, and there is a WhatsApp number there. So that's the end of the slides. I think there were some questions. Let me see if I can have a look at them.
Thank you for the presentation, Michael.
No problem, Natalia.
I don't know if you want to ask you for them. Or
sure.
I'm
Sorry,
sure.
Say that again.
Can you see the questions?
I can, but they are in Espanol.
Okay.
And I can't quite understand them. I could try, but it'll take a long time.
I can translate it for you. So we have a couple of questions in English, and then we have another in Spanish. So one of the questions in English is there a pathway for master's degree?
You mean a pathway to come from Tafe and then into a master degree?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's basically what the question is. No, it's not possible to go from Tafe into a master degree. It's only possible to go from Tafe into an undergraduate or bachelor degree only. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we have another related to the weather. What about the weather?
Yes.
Perth is too hot. Is that true?
My apologies. I can now see the questions. This question is from Eduardo Cruz. What about the climate of Perth? I've heard it is too hot. Is that true? Well, that's not really true. It's today I think the maximum temperature today is forecast to be 16 or 17 degrees today, Celsius. So we actually have 4 very distinct seasons in Perth. In winter, today I'm looking out the window, there's a little bit of rain today, it's a little bit cold. We are basically now right in the middle of winter. And so 16 degrees maximum today, that's about as cold as it will get. Very rarely does it ever get colder than 16 degrees as a maximum temperature. Friday morning is forecast to be 5 degrees. First thing in the morning, it's going to be 5 degrees Celsius, and then it's going to go up to about 18 degrees. So these are essentially the coldest temperatures you can expect in Western Australia. But even during winter, we have some very nice days where it's 21 degrees. Winter is when we see rain. When it gets to September, October, November, the rain starts to leave. We get longer and longer days and warmer days. So September, October, November, December is when summer comes. January is when summer comes. And yes, it can get quite hot in January, February as well, and March. Sometimes it can get very, very hot. So during the day, maybe 40 degrees on a very, very hot day, but usually something like 32, 33, 34 degrees. But even during those summer days, in the afternoon, the temperature drops down to 24, 25, 26 degrees when the breeze comes in off the ocean. So the weather is actually very, very nice during summer. And of course, you always have a very nice selection of beaches if you like swimming, and it's a great place to go and cool off. So, Natalia, I'm happy to answer the next question from Eduardo because I can now see the questions. The next question is about train stations. Tafes are close to train stations. Yes, so in the city of Perth, the majority of our Tafe campuses are very, very close to public transport, whether it's train stations or bus stations. Yes, very close, most of them, to train stations, and also very close to accommodation. But usually most students eventually choose to get a car. That is not just to make it easier to move around Perth, but also because students want to travel outside Perth to see the rest of Western Australia. So for example, driving from Perth to Bunbury is about 2 hours drive. Margaret River is about 3 hours drive. Yellingup, 3 hours drive. Albany is about 4 or 5 hours drive. These sound like long drives, but the idea is this idea of the famous Australian road trip. West Australian road trip, whether south or whether north, is an experience that you can't get anywhere else. So a lot of people choose to get cars to do road trips. There are some really beautiful, unique parts of the world that you can see with a car. So very easy in Perth to rely on public transport, particularly with the Tafe campuses, but think about getting a car so that you can go outside Perth to have a look around. So Felipe, what I understood was that Tafe courses offer pre-degree courses. Are the pathways the ones which promote the bachelor, I think BSS, I'm not sure, is this Bachelor of Social Science?
I'm not sure either. Felipe, ¿nos puedes aclarar qué es BSS, por favor? No nos queda muy claro.
So I've just put I can see the next question is for my contact details, so I'm just going to put those back up on the screen. And of course, don't forget also, if the time zone is difficult, don't forget you can also contact Blue Studies, our agency in Latin America. Now, so answering this question from Felipe, understand that Tafe offers pre-degree courses. Are the pathways the ones which promote the Bachelor? I think BSS, you mean Bachelor of Social Science. Maybe?
Maybe, could be. I'm not sure actually, but let me see if Felipe answered the question. No. No, we don't know what is.
That's okay. I think broadly speaking, the answer is we have TAFE programs that provide pathways to a lot of different degrees. So there are some Bachelor of Science programs in like community services, early childhood education, if that's the sort of thing. But basically, there are a lot of different pathways to a lot of different degrees. So business, engineering, hospitality, science, IT, and also community services or sort of social sciences. So have a look at our university pathway finder, or just contact me for
oh, you mean bachelor degrees in general? I mean, all bachelor degrees.
Yeah, bachelor degrees in general. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to type a couple of answers.
We have another that is, how much costs the master program?
Okay, let me see how much costs a master program. There's a couple of other answers here. Let me just make sure I've answered them all. I think I have. So how much does a master degree cost? Yeah, depends on the master degree, but they can be quite expensive. Anything from $25,000 up to $35,000 up to $40,000 a year. It depends on the master program. We don't have any master degree courses here at Tafe. We have vocational qualifications, so certificate programs, diploma programs, advanced diploma programs, and they are pathways through to bachelor degrees. Master degrees are directly with the universities. I hope that answers that question for you.
We have another question from Julian, Michael.
Yes, I see.
You want to know if you study at TAFE.
How long have I been working with TAFE? I have been working with TAFE now for over 3 years. Before that, I was working with a university for around about 8 years, 7 or 8 years, I think it was. Maybe 6 or 7 years, actually. And before that, I was working in London. And before that, I was an international student in Western Australia. Which career did I study at TAFE? I didn't actually study at TAFE. I did a university degree. I did a marketing degree. How was it when I studied here? This is your question. It was great. It was a long time ago. As you can see by my slightly gray beard, I'm a little bit older than most of, well, maybe not most of you guys, but certainly most of the students I deal with from other countries. But I think Latin American students are very often mature age students. I studied as an international student in 1997, 1998, 1999, and 2000. It was very, very nice in Perth back then. Then I left and went to London for 8 years. And I came back in 2009, and Perth has changed completely from the late 90s. These days, it's a very, very modern, very dynamic city. And in fact, economically speaking, it's actually the strongest city in Australia, economically speaking. So I hope that answers your question. I think you had another one. Tell us some experience while you were studying at TAFE. Well, I didn't study, as I said, at TAFE, but I did work. I had been working at TAFE for a long time. And I know from working on the campus that students are having really great experiences that are usually not classroom-based, but more practical-based. I see students all the time on campus doing hands-on activities, and they look to me like they really are enjoying themselves. So I hope that answers your question, Julian. Okay, a couple more questions. One from Felipe. How much are the transportation fees around the location? So I'm answering that question now. It depends where you live. So I can't give you an exact amount, but I can tell you that as a student, international student in Western Australia, you have a 40% discount on public transport fees. Now that is substantial. In the city of Perth itself, in the very city centre, public transport is actually completely free for everybody in the city centre of Perth. So the Northbridge campus and the East Perth campus, those two campuses, which are very popular with international students, they actually exist in a free public transport zone. But outside that, we basically have zones, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, and a 40% discount probably equates to like maybe $1.50, $2 for a one-way journey, then $2.50, $3, $3.50, $4 as you start to go out. So it just depends where you are. but very, very affordable. I think I've answered the master's question. So let me just make sure these are being ticked off.
English requirement.
Yes. You mean the IELTS question, the one from Marluri Romero, I think it is.
Marluri Romero, and we have another in Facebook about the English requirement. About
Lots
IELTS.
of questions. That's great. Thank you for all your questions. This is a really exciting session. I'm very full of energy about this. Lots of great questions. Thank you. Gracias, gracias. So let me answer this one here. Is IELTS necessary? Is it necessary to do an IELTS qualification? Well, look, IELTS is never compulsory unless you are doing something that does require IELTS specifically. But most courses have an English requirement that can be met from a variety of different backgrounds. So Pearson test of English, TOEFL, occupational English test, IELTS, a lot of different, I think I mentioned Pearson test of English. There are a lot of different English tests you can do to show evidence of your English, okay? We also have our own internal English placement test that you can do in a Blue Studies office if you like, or if you are in Perth, you can actually do it on our campus. The English placement test that we run is only for our internal purposes, but if you do something like an IELTS or a Pearson's, this is a more universally recognized English test. So the bottom line is, in answer to that question, you need English evidence as well as academic evidence to show you are eligible for the course. So most of our courses are an IELTS of 5.5, no band below 5. But other courses have 6.5 or 6. Nursing is 7, so it just depends. So it's not essential to do IELTS. You can do a different English test, but it is essential to show evidence of your English. Now, the other answer to that question is, do you need to do ELICOS before you do a TAFE course, or can you study ELICOS with TAFE? And what I mean by ELICOS is English language intensive courses for overseas students. Yes, you can do ELICOS with us. So you can do ELICOS by itself. You can come to Western Australia and do an ELICOS course, just English, and then you can follow on with a TAFE course after ELICOS. ELICOS has a variety of different courses available where you can do an IELTS preparation course or just general English or English for academic purposes. And you can use that ELICOS as a way of meeting the requirement for the TAFE course. But still, in order to get into that ELICOS, you do have to do some kind of English assessment to be able to tell how much ELICOS you need. And for students from Latin America, we do have a special of 260 Australian dollars a week for ELICOS courses. So not essential, Marluri Romero, to do IELTS, but it is essential to have a certain level of English before you can do a TAFE course, before you can do a bachelor course, before you can do a master course.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. We have another in Spanish. I have to hear it in my cell phone. Just give me a minute.
I'm just going to keep answering.
A question from Andrea Lugo. I don't know if it's in the, yeah. We have two actually. Yes. Two questions from Andrea Lugo. One of those is it possible to start a diploma from overseas with digital TAFE? I don't know what is digital TAFE mean. Like,
I guess he means online.
Online.
Yeah, let me have a look here. Yes, Andrea Lugo. Do you think there will be an option to enroll in TAFE Digital?
Yeah.
So Andrea, you mean, can you do online studies with us? You can do ELICOS online with us at the moment, so you can study English with us. So we don't just do certificate diploma and advanced diploma courses, we also do ELICOS, as I mentioned. So you can do ELICOS with us online, but unfortunately at the moment it is not possible as an offshore student to do online studies for your TAFE qualification, not at the moment. There are many reasons for that, and it might change, but at the moment it's not possible. But there are many reasons for that, most important of which is the fact that it is very difficult to deliver a vocational course or a practical skills-based course to a very high level of quality online. It's quite difficult to do it. What we are doing for students who are in Perth starting in July, or continuing students who are in Perth continuing their studies in July, is we are doing what's called a blended delivery. Now, the blended delivery is a combination of online study for some units, and then face-to-face where necessary. But that's only for students who are onshore in Perth. Unfortunately, offshore, it's not possible at the moment to do a TAFE course online, but you can do, yes, English online. I hope that answers your question, Andrea. Gracias.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, let's have a look here. There's a few more, I think.
The GPA, Laura Thorne.
Yes. Is there a minimum GPA to apply for a master? Let's answer that one now. Good question. I'm not going to answer that at great length because, as I said earlier, we don't have any master courses. I think this question has been asked by Laura. Yes, you've asked this question twice. Laura, really, yeah, it depends on the master program. We don't actually offer any master programs, so you need to check directly with the universities. Really, most universities, I would say, require simply completion of a bachelor program, sometimes in an area that is the same as the master. GPA-wise, yeah, I mean, some of them might have that requirement. Unfortunately, you would have to check directly with the university or make life easier for yourself and ask Blue Studies to do it for you.
Thank you. We have a question from Facebook, and it is it possible to study 2 diplomas at Tafe?
Very good question. Very good question. Is it possible to study 2 diplomas at Tafe? Look, no is the short answer. It is not possible to study 2 diplomas at Tafe. Is it possible to study 2 courses at the same time? There is a provision in the student visa framework that does allow students the possibility, in very rare and special circumstances, the possibility of doing 2 courses at the same time. But you have to check your visa conditions very closely, and you have to make sure that any additional program you are doing on top of your principal course of study, that additional program is not impacting on your additional course of study. But usually it is not possible, purely from a time perspective, to do 2 courses at the same time. Usually you get a student visa to do 1 course at a time, your course of study for which the student visa is granted. Sometimes that might be a principal course to which you are working your way to. But doing 2 courses at the same time, usually it is not possible, purely from a time perspective. On an international student visa, you are really required to be studying full time, and we take that quite seriously. So a reputable institution like Tafe does have a lot of class time. That varies according to course, but to be able to put an additional course on top of that, very, very difficult. I mean, to give you a rough idea, you might be doing, this is a very rough idea. As a student at TAFE, you might have all day Monday in class, half a day Tuesday in class, maybe all day Wednesday in class, and then maybe nothing on Thursday, and then maybe half a day on Friday. Really, that's just a rough idea. That might not be exactly what your timetable looks like, but it's just an example of how little time you have. So by and large, the Department of Home Affairs requires students to be doing 1 program of study on their student visa. Okay.
Thank you,
Just going to
Michael.
go back up to the top of my list here. So there's something from Valerie Escobar. How much does a master course cost? I think I might have answered this one earlier on. I'll just say it again. Check with the universities directly. But anything from, I don't know, $25,000 up to $35,000. It depends entirely on the master degree. You need to check with the universities directly, or as I said earlier, get your agency Blue Studies to do it for you. There's another question here from Maluri. I'm having trouble pronouncing that name. My apologies. Lo siento, lo siento. Marluri, I think I would imagine it is. Remember, Mallory, what is the age range recommended? Well, we don't have a recommended age, but we do have basically a very sort of strict age requirement, which generally speaking is students have to be turning 18 in the calendar year they start with TAFE. So it has to be a student who is turning 18 in the calendar year that they start TAFE. Sometimes we can be a bit flexible with that, case-by-case basis, but by and large, most students are at least 17 and above before they come to TAFE. If you mean older, like can you come to TAFE at the age of 45 or 50, we have a very diverse student population. We don't really have an age limit in terms of age, mature age. But your ability to get a visa can be affected by age. So just check with Blue Studies on age ranges in terms of visa limitations. But really, there's no age limit going upwards. You can come to TAFE at any age, provided you are, as an international student, in the region of 17 years old and upwards.
Thank you, Michael. We are finishing the session already, so we're going to answer the last question.
Okay.
From Pablo Daniel Jaimovici.
Yes,
yeah,
I see it. Would I consider an IELTS academic test from June 2017 as valid, or should I retake it? Unfortunately, Pablo, that's now 3 years old, more than 3 years old, and that means it's no longer valid.
Yeah, it's only for 2 years.
Correct. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, Michael. I hope we can see a lot of Colombian students studying at TAFE. So
I hope so too. Is there just one more question? En español, ¿cómo se da la situación para poder estudiar inglés con el fin de hacer carrera con la ingeniería? I really have no idea what that means. Is that a question?
Yeah, it's like, I cannot see it anymore.
It's just different. It's just disappeared. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was dismissed. Okay, never mind. Let's see if I can find it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can contact you if we have some students that want to chat with you. Can we?
Yes, absolutely.
Ok, perfect, Michael. Muchas gracias a todos por conectarse. Les vamos a dejar el link acá para que se puedan registrar, que nos dejen sus datos para poder aclarar todas las dudas que tengan para estudiar en el TAFE, que es una gran institución que tiene Western Australia. Además que Western Australia, la ciudad de Perth es un área regional, entonces tiene muchos beneficios a futuro para sus planes ya como de poderse quedar en esta ciudad. Entonces les vamos a dejar el link acá para que se registren y cualquier información relacionada con el TAFE, cualquier pregunta, cualquier duda que tengan relacionadas a otros programas de maestrías, nos pueden escribir y nos pueden dejar sus datos a través del link que les dejamos en el chat. Muchas gracias por conectarse, muchas gracias por el tiempo y nos vemos en la próxima sesión que tengamos de webinar. Thank you very much for your time, Michael.
A great pleasure. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Gracias, everyone. I really appreciate your time. Thanks very much, guys. Have good